sitting here with one of the coolest guys ever to walk the earth on Skinwalker Ranch. Uh, Caleb Bench is going to be with us. He's going to talk to us about some of his experiences
Yep.
on and off the ranch.
Yes.
Um, and their connection. We're not going to get all scientific-y because, let's be honest, 90% of the audience is probably going to look at you like, what? So we're going to break it down to stupid people terms
No, that's fine. I can do that. So
so
that's
that
usually
everybody
where
understands.
Travis and Eric have to bring it down for me sometimes too. So and
Well, and I'm hoping maybe in some future that I'll be able to talk to everybody
yeah,
about their own personal experiences. Because let's be honest, it's crazy on that ranch. From everything
yes,
that I watch on the live feed to everything that I've seen
mhm.
in the show, it's pretty nuts.
Yep,
So,
it
why don't you
is.
go ahead and take the wheel on what craziness you have experienced since maybe the beginning of your employment there to current?
Well, I guess what are you most interested in hearing about? We've got because I've been there for 5 years now. Um, and we're actually posting a lot and doing a lot of Q&As and stuff on our website that we've got going now. Um, skinwalker-ranch.com. So I guess
I
what are
guess
you what are you
what I
most
would like
curious
to know is what kind of anomalies or paranormal, excuse me, activity have you experienced while you're on the ranch? Because we know cattle are attacked. We know that the alpacas were attacked while they were on the ranch. Has there been any physical attack or manifestation against you personally on the ranch?
So I've suffered one injury on the ranch that I'm pretty confident is um, we don't really have a good explanation of how I got it, and it's I had an injury done to my eye, and I've posted a photo of that and stuff on the website. And what happened, this was before the filming and the TV show was coming out. And we'd heard stories of radiation and medical episodes and things of that nature happening. So we brought some people out, and they are from a company that does a lot of that. This is what they do. They do radiation testing. They do trainings for the military and a lot of different groups like that, for government agencies, fire departments, a lot of local police, things like that. And they do a lot of um, chemical warfare training and
Oh,
training guys how to use um, like gas masks and things like that. So, and there's this company's based out of Idaho, actually the area that I'm from. There's a big place out on the desert out there that we call the INL. And so we had these guys come down, and they brought some equipment to test and see if there was any kind of radiation or anything like that that they could find on the ranch. And I
right.
was out there with them when we were up on top of the mesa there above Homestead 2. So we could look down and see Homestead 2 right there. If you're familiar with the first season where Travis was down inside that little cave on the edge of the mesa there, that
Hmm.
sits right on our property, right up on top of the mesa there, right above Homestead 2, where he got swimmy headed. We were
Right. I
standing
think.
in the area, and it was what, Monday or Tuesday afternoon. I could go back and find the date, but we were up there and just we didn't get any kind of weird readings on any of the equipment that they brought out. They had some gamma ray detectors and a couple others. Um, and I just remember like it seemed like something got into my eye, um, like some dust or something. But I had sunglasses on and I had my hat, and it wasn't windy, it wasn't blowing, it wasn't, so I just kind of
Oh
shrugged
my.
it off, like, that was weird, and my eye just went really dry.
Mm.
So 2 days later, I actually woke up and it felt like my eye was being ripped out of my head.
Oh,
And so I go to the eye doctor there, and he gives me some stuff to numb my eye and what was weird, it was like in cycles. The pain
Oh,
would
so it wasn't
come.
like all at once. It
It
was like in
wasn't.
stages.
Yeah. So the pain was coming in stages. So it would get really really intense.
Mhm.
Um, and and then for a couple minutes, and then for a couple minutes it was subsiding, and then
Oh.
and so it was doing that for hours and hours, and I finally got in. I couldn't put contacts in, and that was one of the questions that one of the individuals had, or what the doctor asked is like how I do my contacts, and I've been wearing contacts for, oh, I don't know, 20 years.
Right.
So I use them in the military, and I've always taken them out whenever I can. I'm always really careful with them, and so we kind of ruled that out, that was caused from my contacts, and
Oh,
then
okay. So
and
they
when
could
he put,
definitively say it wasn't contact irritation being scratching against it or
yeah,
anything like
and
that.
then and what he did is he ended up putting these eye drops inside my eye, and so he could shine this blue light on it, and he showed and was really surprised at the damage of my eye.
Oh,
And if
wow.
you look at my eye, you would have like my pupil and all that, and on the bottom, in the bottom section, like the bottom 25% was like this perfect little, um,
Triangle
yeah, like a little triangle kind of thing, and
shape.
it's like you could see right up to the pupil around
Oh,
the edge there, and it was very
wow.
defined. And so the bottom of my eye there was fine, is what it looked like, and then the rest of my eye, it looked like there were there's these stages where, and he described them on the surface of my eye. He could see these ridges, like someone, like, imagine throwing a rock into a really calm piece of water, and you see all the ripples coming out
Uh,
from it. And so the surface of
right.
my eye spreading from the center of my eye outward, there were these ripples, and you can actually see in the photograph, um, that there's these sections that get, more intense, if you will, towards the center and
Hmm.
out. So the eye doctor there, he couldn't really tell me what it was. He was pretty perplexed by it. He took the photo, um, and was never really able to give me a good answer. And then it was a couple, and I asked the, um, individuals from the company,
Hmm.
what like a radiation burn or something like that could be. And I actually showed them the picture of it. And the one said that it could have been, but he wasn't sure. Um, and then he came back a little bit later and said that it wasn't radiation. Um,
Oh,
and
wow.
then I
Okay.
finally actually talked to Doctor Christopher Lee, who's
Hmm.
Brandon's friend, who he's brought out to the ranch, and he's kind of been one that we've talked with. And I showed them the photo, and explained what happened, explained, uh, kind of the circumstances, the symptoms, and things like that. And Dr. Lee said that it wasn't radiation. And Dr. Lee's pretty much like, the leading individual when it comes to some cancer research and some
Right.
radiation and things like that. He's one of the leading individuals in the country when it comes to those kinds of injuries. And so he was able to tell me definitely that it wasn't any kind of radiation, but he said, after looking at the photograph and talking to me about it, he said that it was definitely some kind of energy that he didn't know what it was, that
Oh,
had hit my eye,
wow.
and that it was very direct.
See, that sounds very familiar. Almost like Tom's. Is it Tom?
Yep.
Uh, Injury on the back of his head that
Yep.
separated the skull from the
Yeah.
scalp.
So what happened with Tom is, there was this fluid that was there, and it separated his scalp and all that tissue from the skull, and there was a big, um, fluid sac there between his skin and that, and that's what you see in that X-ray.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's pretty scary
yep.
too.
And then that's the same area that Dr. Taylor Travis, he had those radiation burns right down there at Homestead too. So this is that same area, at least where my injury and, Travis's injury were. Tom was actually we're pretty sure we know where he got his. It was a little further, kind of in between Homestead 2 and the Triangle area there.
Yeah, there seems to be an awful lot of activity right between those two places, and I know there's been a lot of talk of
Hmm.
portal or possible wormhole activity. Now, if there's a possibility of a wormhole or a portal, Is it possible that there are multiples on that ranch? Because it
Yeah,
seems
you
like
know.
it bounces around. Like you have places under the mesa that seem real crazy, then you have places in the triangle that seem real crazy, and out in the fields where the cattle are that
Mhm.
seem like they've got some kind of portal or wormhole type activity.
Yeah, so that's actually something that Eric's talked a lot about is that whatever this is transient, and that's we've all that's one of our big topics of discussion is we see these things happen, and we talk about and Eric kind of calls it like the fingerprint
Hmm.
of something happening, and we've actually been able to kind of track that at different times as it's moving from one place from one location to the next. We've actually had like antennas, and we're actually like moving these antennas, and we're seeing these returns. Um, for instance, this 1.6 signal that we've been talking about, we've actually had a couple experiences where we actually are seeing it move in different areas on the ranch, as
Oh,
well as different magnetic anomalies going on where it's messing with phones and messing with other kinds of equipment, and we are seeing that moving um, at different times on the ranch, and then you'll walk out there and it's not there, like the next day or even for weeks, so
right.
we kind of have these different um, periods, if you will, where sometimes it seems like nothing happens for a couple months or a couple weeks, and then
Okay.
and then things start happening again, or it's we get a lot through we have a lot of activity for a couple months, and then it
Hmm.
kind of dies off, so there's no rhyme or reason to it.
It just kind of scatters
Yep.
and strange, not even pattern like.
Yeah,
I
so
have an
the
intelligent question to ask. I don't mean to interrupt. So
Nick,
before the Skinwalker Ranch was a ranch, was there any old nuclear weapons testing done back in the day out there that
no,
you know
not in
of?
this area. So
Okay.
um, we actually showed and we've had that discussion. So what we found out is that there have been some Geiger counters were set up in the Uinta Basin because of fallout that occurred during like the 50s during all the nuclear uh, weapons testing from the 40s and 50s. So there was some fallout that they registered up here, but that's all I really know. But there wasn't any kind of actual testing done in this area. Anything that they were seeing was just kind of like everywhere else out here in the West, where when they were testing, they had all that radiation just pretty much hitting. Once it went up, it was spread all over the Western U.S. essentially. Because they didn't know at that time what they were dealing with.
Right.
Okay, I
And
have a
now,
question. Um, when you decided to come on, was it because you wanted to know exactly what was going on, or did you have like where maybe you were like, "Oh, I don't believe it, so I need to see it," or
Mhm.
more of a curiosity? Like, what made you decide to take this on?
So me, I'm not originally from the area. I'd been living in the basin. Gosh, this has been 5 years ago. So I'd been in the basin about 4 or 5 years now. At that time, and I had no idea this place even existed. I didn't know any of the lore. I didn't know any of it. So my first day on the ranch was actually Halloween in 2017. Uh,
that's
Tom,
ironic.
Thomas Winterton reached out to me because Brandon asked if he could help, if he knew anybody in the area that could help with security. And so Thomas Winterton, he's my brother-in-law. Um, and I was in the Marines, and at that time I wasn't in law enforcement. Um, and so Tom reached out to me and was like, "Hey, you want to come help with security out here?" We've been, and Tom, he'd been on the ranch, I think, for about a year about at that point. And, I'd heard some conversations about the ranch with some family members and stuff. And Tom was like, but it never really piqued my interest. And then when Tom called me and asked me if I wanted to go out there, my wife was more excited than I was because she's like, "You realize where you're going?" I was like, "No, I don't." Like, what? And she's
What's
like,
so special?
yeah, I was like, well, and she's like, oh, all this crazy stuff. And so I come out here and Tom starts telling me some stories and stuff, and I was like, oh, okay, I've never been like, oh, it doesn't exist. I've always been open to
The
um,
possibility.
possibilities and stuff. I'm a big sci-fi and fantasy fiction fan.
Guilty.
Right. So I grew up obviously, 90s kid. So we had Star Wars, we had Indiana
What?
Jones. We
You
had,
grew up '90s kid? Like you can't be
yeah,
much older than me then.
yeah.
I was
I'm
born
the
literally
youngest.
1990.
Yeah, I'm 88. So I'm
Oh,
the
Oh,
two
wow.
years.
I'm
Yeah.
the baby on the ranch, if you will.
Bro,
All
I'm
the
older
other
than
guys
you.
are older than me. Huh?
I said I'm older than you are.
Yeah.
So I'm yeah, so I grew up with all that, obviously. Then reading, I actually went to Utah State and studied languages and history and mythologies and stuff. So that's kind of that's my area, if you will. So
So it was just basically like, hey, my brother-in-law asked me, and so I said, yeah, okay. It wasn't
yeah,
like
pretty
we
much.
heard about it and we're like, no, I need to try to do this, or I need to see
You
what.
just kind of ended up in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I was in the right place at the right time, essentially. And so I started coming out, and they were like, and Brandon, he had some guests come out a couple months later. It was Robbie Williams and a couple other individuals that were doing the documentary. And that was actually the first time I had any kind of an experience. Because up to that point, I'd heard stories, and then I read about half of the one book from George Knapp.
Hmm.
Um, where he talks about the story with the giant wolf that attacks the cow and stuff. And I was like, okay, that's
Right, right.
that one's hard to believe. Yeah, it's
Kind of
exciting.
swallow, but
Yeah,
yeah.
stuff like that. It's a little bit harder, and I think that and so that first weekend that I actually experienced anything was it wasn't anything real crazy. It was some smaller stuff, and it was just some stuff that you go, huh, and you can kind of you try to explain it away, and that's kind of one of our
Right.
jokes.
Like the head scratchers.
Yeah, and like, so one of the more recent things that I've had happen actually was we you'll put something down, and you put it there, but then you come back and it's gone, or it's missing or something. So
Oh
um
no.
yeah, so
The ones that kind of make you feel like you lost your mind for a minute.
yeah, so it's one of those things where you have 1,000 of those things happen, and you're like, okay, something, like, you have to kind of things happen, and it's nothing big. Little things like this seem to happen, and it's one of those things, like, can we really, like, say that this is like the phenomenon doing it, or if it's the jokester that some people have nicknamed it, or the hitchhiker. But I had my one pair of sunglasses, and I knew I had them on the ranch. I knew I set them down, and they were at the ranch somewhere, and they were inside the command center. And I ended up I was hanging out with Eric and doing some stuff for a couple hours, and I ended up just forgetting them because it was night when I left, and I just forgot to grab them. And I was like, and when I got home, I was like, oh crap, where's my sunglasses? And then the next day I go out there, and because it's happened before where Eric was like, oh hey, you left this here. I was like, oh gee, thanks, thanks
Right.
for. And I go back, I was like, hey, have you seen my sunglasses? And he's like, no. And I tore the command center apart. I tore my car apart.
Oh
I come
man.
back home. I don't find them in my house, and I actually went a couple days, and I just went and bought a new pair. And then when I came back and I was walking up to the command center, those pair of sunglasses were sitting there in front of the steps going up into our
Oh
porch. So they're like
no.
they're sitting on the rocks, but they're pristine. There's no damage. And people have been walking up and down those stairs for the last couple days. So,
And
and I
nobody.
walked up, yeah, because somebody, you see sunglasses sitting in where they were, you'd probably pick them up, go, oh, who are, and take them inside or something.
Right. It's kind of like
And
the
so,
skateboard in the middle of the steps. You're gonna want to move it so you don't break it or break yourself.
yeah, so you have things like that happen all the time, and there's no, yeah, I just drop them there? I don't know, but I walked over those stairs multiple times throughout probably 3 to 4 day period, and they weren't there. had
Oh,
weather
man.
come through, we had a storm come through, and when I picked them up, there was no dust on them. They were pristine. So I was like, where the heck they go?
Oh, wow.
And so you have little things like that happen all the time. Um,
Now,
and
there is one incident that I want to talk about when you're finished with your thought, and that
Mhm.
is the patrol car incident
oh
that's on that's on the website, because that one intrigued me quite a
yes,
bit on how the happens of that. So
yes.
let you finish what you were, but that's one of the ones I do want to touch on is the car incident.
Okay, so that happened just this last January, if it's the one I'm thinking of.
The one where the
Um,
lights wouldn't go off on the dome.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that happened. Yeah, that just happened this previous January, so 2022. And I was on nights. I was at that time doing full time with the local police department here. Because during the winter, it it slows down, as in like on the ranches, and like we don't get as many people who are curious. It's cold, bad weather,
Right. Cattle go
so
back to wherever they were.
yeah, people don't really want to come out and sightsee when it's that. So I tend to go and do some full-time police work at that during that time. I still come out onto the ranch, and we come visit. We keep pretty good eyes on the ranch throughout the year. But I was doing a night shift, and yeah, like what I showed in that video, none of all my lights in that patrol vehicle would not shut off. I stopped to get gas. Um, and I get back into my vehicle, and all the lights are on. All the dome lights, all the lights like on the doors, everything was on. Um, and when you're on night shift as an officer, that's kind of a safety issue. Someone can see you from a mile away.
Yeah, I'm good on that one. I can understand why
Yeah.
that would be quite a problem.
Yeah, so I actually drove down the street, and I was sitting there, and I was like, why aren't my lights shutting off? And I start hitting all the dials. I actually shut the vehicle off. Um, and actually, before I did that video, I went through and I did all this.
Oh,
And
man.
and so I'd been messing with all those lights, trying to get them shut off for about 20 minutes before I actually recorded that video. That's on the website. And I was like, okay, I can't be out here with my lights like this. So I actually drove up to our police station and walked in and grabbed my sergeant. I was like, hey, come check this out. And he comes out, and he does all the same stuff I do. And he's sitting there going, and he was like, that's kind of weird. And like
Yeah.
we were hitting all the switches, and trying to get all these lights to shut off, but they just wouldn't shut off. And it
Oh,
went on
man.
for about an hour. And it was to the
Okay,
point
so
where
did anybody come in order to fix it, or were you able to get a diagnostic done on the vehicle?
so it just we got to the point where he was like, well, we can't have you running around with this, so you're gonna have to go get another car. And as I went, and because I shut the vehicle off, pulled the keys out, and all the lights were still on, and this, they'd been on for 20-30 minutes.
Oh, gosh.
And we were disconnecting everything we could. And when he said, okay, maybe you're gonna have to go get another car, I was like, crap. And I go and start pulling all my gear out to go put it in another car, and everything went off. And
I think I would have been a little pissed after that.
yeah, it was annoying. It was annoying. So I go back and I sit there, and everything starts working just fine. So things like that happen. And like I can tell you, Jim Morris, he's had all the lights on his vehicle blown out before,
Oh,
where he had to go in, like literally blown out.
oh gosh.
Where it costs thousands of dollars to go through and replace all the lights in his vehicle. We've had things like that happen quite
Oh,
a bit.
wow.
Uh,
Now, I've also noticed in a lot of the live feed that you guys have posted right now on the website, which
Mhm.
we have all, I believe, signed up for, I think,
Mhm.
at this point. There's a lot of shadow activity that we've noticed, and I've noticed when you were doing season 2 and 3, there were a couple
Mhm.
incidences under the helicopter that same shadowy type phenomenon seemed to occur. Do you guys believe that this could be a possible hitchhiker phenomenon that could be what's following you guys around?
Yeah, that's the discussion is, and we have a lot of theories. Because right now there's no. You guys are seeing what we're seeing. All the experiments, especially through the television show, um, the rabbi experiment, the when
That
we're
was
shooting the rockets
interesting.
off and we're seeing lights and stuff, and some we are tracking aircraft all the time. We know where aircraft are. Um, we and there's ones that we go, yeah, that's an aircraft. We know what that is. But there are the ones that we clearly go, yeah, that's not human. That's not at least at least anything that we know about. Um, and so yeah, there's a lot of different theories on what it is. We have the discussion that maybe it is spiritual. We have a discussion that there is some kind of intelligence there, and that's where we say the ranch reacts, and people think that's crazy, but
I think
I,
Tom said it best. When something new is brought into the environment, the ranch
yeah,
responds to it.
yeah, there we have a lot of response, and that's why we're careful about who we bring on and things like that. Um, we don't do tours or anything like that with our insurance company. That's just too much liability, especially with what we've had happen.
Yep,
Um,
that's definitely
and,
understandable, especially after Dr. Travis's radiation
mhm,
exposure that caused the burns, your eyes, and
mhm.
Tom's head injury,
Yeah,
which actually appeared like it was trying to recur during the season a couple of times.
yeah, and that's where it's we've had multiple eye injuries, and it just hasn't been me. Every guy on the team's had an eye injury, or something happened with their eye.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
if you're familiar with the show, you've seen that we've had people who have collapsed around the Homestead
Yep.
2 area.
That
Um,
that area seems to be on and off radioactive of some kind.
yeah, and that's again where I'll give you a little bit more on that. Sounds like you're pretty familiar with the show. When we brought the giant bulldozer out,
Yes.
um, that little Geiger counter that we had sitting out there where that showed the 3,500 spike. So
Yes.
for how that works, it's pretty localized, that scanner or that Geiger counter. It's very localized. So you have your like the scanner is about this big, and you have your one spot where the radiation has to go through that one area.
Got you. So you
And
got to be
so
pretty close to whatever's radiating that
yeah,
spike.
and we actually left, and so for that scanner, for that one little spot to get hit with that amount of radiation, it's either like someone was pinpointing it and hitting it, or we just happened to be at the right place at the right time as this massive wave went through and hit it.
Right. And there seems to be a lot of problems when it comes to digging on the ranch itself, whether the material or the machinery breaks down, or point the measuring tape became magnetically
Hmm. Yeah,
uh, affected,
yeah,
uh, which was really unique to see.
yep.
Um, do they ever actually get the root causes of why the machinery breaks down, why batteries drain, why
Mhm.
your phone tended to somehow hack itself?
No,
um,
that's we're perplexed on it. Obviously, there's some theories, there's some ideas floating around on that, but it's one of the things that we're dealing with. And people, we have many redundant systems when we're filming, for instance. Um, and at the end of the seasons, when we're done filming, the crew, they have this massive box full of batteries, and they're just dead.
oh my
Um,
gosh.
and I don't even want to know how much money they've spent in batteries. But like the great example is that bulldozer again. Is the gentleman who brought that out? He'd put, I think that, I think that bulldozer. It takes like 4 to 6 batteries, and they're big
Right,
batteries. They're bigger than your average car battery. And
right.
he put 6 brand new batteries in that before he brought it to the ranch. When he got it to the ranch and went to turn it on to take it off the trailer, all 6 of those batteries were dead. They
Oh my
were they were
gosh.
better than dead. They had voltmeters, they checked them everything. So he has to take those 6 batteries back, get 6 new ones,
Yeesh.
bring them back, get them put
That's
into the
expensive.
bulldozer. It didn't want to start then, and he'd replaced the starter, he'd replaced everything on that thing he could before he
Oh
brought
my
it out to make sure it was fine.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so he's on his second set of batteries. Finally gets it going, gets it out to where we're going to start doing the experiment. And as you saw, Tom does like 2 passes. He pushes his first
And it just
and
stops
comes
dead in
back.
the middle.
Yep,
And
just kills
that's
it.
when there was a radiation spike that chased y'all out of the area for a good.
And that's when that one radiation spike happened. Yes, and so that gentleman had to go replace all those batteries, and he takes those back, and essentially all the people at the auto parts store where he's getting these batteries were like, we can't give you any.
Man, they're probably sitting there going, "You guys are getting us good business
Yep.
this year."
Yeah, so
Um,
there's no rhyme
and
or
then
reason.
it just seems like there's a lot of odd. I can't really say coincidences, or maybe they are coincidences. I don't know. We're not there with you guys when these things are happening. But I did notice that when the ground penetrating radar was done, there was a lot of dome shaped
Mhm.
anomalies found. Well, then you bring in the driller who does the vertical drill,
Mhm. Yep.
and he's coming up against something that's dome shaped in the mesa. So I'm wondering, is there a possibility that there's multiple crafts or structures underneath the ranch itself? I know that there's been talk of the tunnel systems, and you guys look to have pinpointed at least one of those systems.
So yeah, we know that there's underground tunnels or underground rivers, and that's well documented, not just by us. And there are obviously I'm going underneath. We've drilled quite a few places on the ranch, and we've hit water pretty within 20, 30 feet, and which isn't uncommon in the whole basin as a whole. In certain areas where you can punch down and you'll find good water within 20, 30 feet. But and there's some things that haven't been shown, and other people have been able to show. So like in the first season where we were seeing some of those dome shaped things, that can be affected, and it was shown that can be affected by power lines, and so and things like that. So we know, and they haven't done a good job of following up on some of that stuff.
I wish they
And
would.
we get some of these questions, and there's just so much information. I'm not trying to say anyone's doing like a bad job or anything like that.
Oh no. Well, you guys have things that are kind of like it's here and then it's here and then it's here, and you guys seem to be chasing your tail sometimes.
Oh yeah, we have a lot of stuff
on?
going on, and it's just hard keeping track of everything, So, but yeah, we had another gentleman come out with GPR at one point. We've had multiple teams out, and they've said the same thing. Is sometimes these are affected by the lines above the ground, or there's reflections. Like there's and they know those things,
Right.
and it just doesn't get shown. So like we've actually done the math with all the filming that we do.
Right.
We're getting like 49,000 minutes worth of film or something like that, and you're seeing less than 1%. So
Yeah.
There's hours and hours of footage that you won't see, and a good example of that is we had some the same time that Travis. So the incident with Travis getting radiated. This is a good example of this. So all the cameras around Travis went dead. All the big actual film cameras. So what you're seeing is actually from a cell phone. One of the producers was able to get his cell phone out in time and start recording. So everything with Travis, that's all from a cell phone.
Oh wow.
At the same time,
I did not know that. You wouldn't have even known that watching the show because it just kind of plays concurrently.
And that's one of the things the production company we work with. They're masters at what they're doing. They're awesome. I have nothing but good to say about them. But at the same time, Travis was down there with Dr. Segala at that time. We had other individuals up on top of the mesa there, and you're never going to see any of that because all the audio files were wiped. So there's like 3 hours. There's like 3 hours of footage where you just see mouths moving,
and then there's
and
just
he's
nothing.
doing stuff, but you'll never see it because all the audio cards were wiped, and there's no.
Oh man.
And the only
And
reason you see
nobody wants to read lips to figure out what you're saying.
so yeah, and things like that happen. Like that, we have these redundant systems, and there's things that won't be shown because we can't, because something's been wiped like that.
Oh wow. I see. I think that would be kind of frustrating
Oh yeah,
as you're recording these things, going, yes, we've got something good, and
Yep.
then you go back and you're like, and we can't show it.
Yeah.
I think that would be pretty frustrating.
Well,
Now I would love to talk to everybody, and I'm hoping maybe I'll be able to get that chance. But I know one of the things that I've always been really curious about is what intrigued Brandon into purchasing the land to do what so many scientists have done and failed and covered up.
So on that, there's some layers there that I don't know if I'm the one that can speak to that. So Brandon, I know he's just been curious and he wants to know just like anybody else, and he's willing to get it out there. So, and initially when he was even approached about doing the show with it, he was like, as long as no one knows it's me who owns it, as long as I'm just going to stay in the shadows, and whatever happens can get put out there. I don't care, just as long as
you keep me out of it.
He didn't want to be attached to it.
That obviously changed.
He was kind of I know there was a discussion, and he was and his mind was changed, and he looked at it a different way. So yeah, but
well, right now he's known as the face of the project that's bringing the truth to the American people.
yeah, I guess that's the first I've heard it put that way.
The reason we think of it that way is because he's the only one who hasn't tried to cover it up, regardless of the Blackhawks that have been, from what I can tell, stalking the ranch.
And that's where we've had people come out, and I can't go into some stuff yet. Mm-hmm. Just with some of our NDAs and things, and that's one of those layers that people, we try to.
There's a lot of legalities
there's a lot of legalities and things like that. I was in the military. I was in the Marines. I had top secret clearance due to my job. I was on tanks, and there's a lot of things on there that are top secret. So every tanker has top secret clearance, or at least they did. I don't know. I know that the Marines got rid of all their tanks, but so there's things that we can show, there's things that we can talk about, but then there's legalities on other things, and at some point we will be able to
kind of stay kind of broad spectrum.
Yeah, it's like a timing thing. So eventually people will be able to talk about some stuff. It's just gonna take some time, but anything that we can get out there, we are getting out there, and again, that's why we have the website, and we're it sounds like you guys are insiders as well. So you've seen what's going on with that. You guys can get on there, and you've seen that the insiders themselves have caught things on cameras that we would have missed otherwise, potentially, or it would have been weeks before we found it because of I help Eric with going through all that footage and stuff, and we have to, like, the last time I looked, we had like 53,000 video clips, and each one of those clips are 30 seconds to a minute long. So just having to go through all those, take some time, and
that's a lot.
Yeah. So, we pretty much can tell when there's something that's out of place that we want to pay a little bit more attention to, or we know what a bug is, or Eric's had things where it looks like something's happening, but it was just a spider web.
Oh,
that was in front of
spiders.
And people are like, "Oh my gosh, something's going on." It's like, guys, like, no, and we go out there and we clean it, and they're like, "Oh my god," It's kind of a letdown thing.
I think one of my more curious incidences also is when you and Travis, you guys were having supper at night. It was about going sundown, and you guys had seen, or Travis had seen, this strange shaped anomaly that was, I think he said, yellow and glowing.
Yeah. So what happened there, and we're actually going to do more of a video for that as well, because they didn't really go into that too much, in the season. It was around some very interesting other thing. Like we had a lot of things happening.
Yeah, that's the only instance that they had referred to in the video. So I would love to know
Yeah.
what all
So
craziness happened leading up to that moment.
yeah. So what actually happened was we have Travis's trailer out there when he's out during our investigations and stuff, and we have a picnic table there, and we were grilling, and it was 10 o'clock and it was Tuesday night. So Travis was up grilling. I'm actually facing the same like direction I was that night. So I was sitting facing Tom and Eric. They were at the picnic table next across from me. Bryant was inside the trailer talking to a family member on the phone, and I just felt like I was being watched. And
I know that feeling.
I started feeling, and I started hearing these popping sounds, like similar to kind of like the air bubbles or the
the bubble wrap.
bubble wrap. Yeah, thank you. So it was a mix between that, but you could really tell there was electric power with it too.
Oh wow.
And so coupled with me feeling like I'm being watched, and then I start hearing that, and it wasn't constant. It was like every couple minutes I just hear a snap.
Oh, okay.
And it seemed like it was getting closer. And so what I actually did is I repositioned myself on that picnic table, so I was like facing the two individuals, so I could talk to Tom and Eric and Travis, but then I could actually look over my shoulder
Right,
to see if
and trying to be like, why do I feel like I'm being watched?
Yeah, and again, it's 10 o'clock at night, so it's dark.
Mhm.
We're right there by the command center, and so we had some ambient light off, but it was still pretty dark. And I just got to the point where I told the guys, I was like, I feel like I'm being watched. And Tom and Eric had actually been having a kind of a side conversation where they were going, something like shifted, something's like changed.
Oh, like the energy, or
Yeah, you could feel it in the air. Something had changed. And so, and I was like, and I told them, and they were like, yeah, like, so we all got real quiet, and Travis was standing up right in front of me, and we're standing there, and either it's because we all kind of got real quiet, or it was like closer. I don't know, but it was like someone took a branch and like snapped it.
oh no.
And so I pop up, and I the only light I had was on my pistol at that time. So I was like, all right. So I pulled my pistol and I turned the light on, and I was sitting there sweeping around looking for something. So I looked over into the trees that were right behind me or right there, and there's nothing there. And me and Travis comes and puts his hand on my shoulder, and we go walking around this trailer that's next to the canal bank there, and we have about 10 feet between the canal and this trailer. And so we're walking between there, and the canal comes through, and we have our little area where we like a little bridge that we can go over the culvert there on the bridge. And we're about 20 or 30 feet from there, and we see this, and Travis sees it first. So I'm sweeping over, I'm holding my pistol, I'm swinging it this way, and he starts yelling because I see something out of the corner of my eye, and it's this rectangular object sitting there. And at first we almost thought it was like a cougar or something just from the profile, but then I swung over, and I saw this on the surface. I have to think about what happened sequentially. So I'm swinging over, and out of the corner of my eye, I see this like glint. So think if you've ever been on the water on a boat or something,
and you see like that little glint of the light off the water.
Yeah, you see like it's almost like a line of light that goes across the surface of the water.
Mm-hmm.
It was that, and then as I was swinging over, I saw this globe come across the surface of it, and it stopped at the center of the thing. And I saw these two shadows because it was reflecting back at us. And I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, that's my gun light reflecting back at me, and that's Travis and I's shadow. I could see Travis and I's like reflection in this thing at 20, 30 feet. So we're starting to go, Matt, this thing's actually pretty big, but as we're sitting there watching this, and I was sitting there going, do I shoot this by chance? Like, what happened?
Like, how should I react in this instance?
Yeah, but then I was like, well, I don't feel like I'm like in danger. But so what happened, the best thing I can describe this as is one of two things happened. Is either it like came in on itself
mm-hmm.
and just disappeared, or it like turned and it disappeared.
And oh
But
wow.
both Travis and I had the distinct feeling that it went across the canal and up the mesa, so we went running after it.
Right,
And
and I do believe that part is sort of kind
yeah,
of from a distance in the video feed. The problem is that video
yeah,
is so dark. You can see the shadows and outlines of you guys, but that's about
yeah,
all you could really see, and you can kind of see the picnic table a little.
yeah. And
So,
so we didn't have any cameras actually focused at that area. Some of the footage that you're seeing is actually from Eric when he heard me and Travis yell. Eric ran over to the command center and started moving cameras to
to
see if
try
we
and
could
follow you
catch
guys
anything.
is
Yeah. And then we did have some other stuff happen within a couple minutes of that, something flying through the sky, and Travis saw it. And we did have a meteor shower going that night. So
oh
we
wow.
don't know.
I don't remember seeing that part.
No, there was
That's
one
pretty cool.
going, but we didn't see any of the meteors or anything. We know there was one
Oh,
going in an area of the sky though. But
okay.
what Travis saw go through the sky a couple minutes later was it was interesting. And then we had something similar happen the week later, same about the same time, and Travis and Tom were the ones that saw it that time.
I know there's a lot of weird things because I mean you guys get everything from shadows to oblong shapes to glowing white orbs to
Yep,
there was one video I actually saw on the live feed of three dot glowing lights that were in a triangular
yep,
pattern
yep.
recently. I think that was
Yeah, that was
last week
about a
or
month and a
so.
half ago.
Oh well, I only saw it last week,
Yeah.
so it's
So
been a little bit longer than I thought. But those particular patterns, and then in Homestead too, there seems to be a reoccurring bright orb that seems to kind of dance around in
yeah,
the room.
we've caught orbs over there multiple times, and that's what's cool with the insiders is they've seen an orb there a few times since we've started the website. A couple, so it's been about 3 months now. Um, and yeah, we've seen multiple orbs throughout different areas on the ranch. It's kind of one of the common stories that you'll hear not just on the ranch, but in the Uinta Basin as a whole. Weird orbs, weird lights flying around, and things like that. So we've caught quite a few on the ranch, and then other people have shared videos with us, which is really cool. Um, and then we've got multiple videos in daylight hours with. So we showed the one that second season where we had the object coming out of the clouds,
I
doing
remember
some.
that.
Yeah. So we've caught some very cool UFOs on camera that are reacting and moving in ways that aren't possible.
I was gonna
And
say they seem almost intelligently reacting to you
oh
guys
yeah,
in your experiments.
we're pretty confident in saying that there's something or possibly some kind of intelligence that we're dealing with. And personally, my personal thoughts is we're dealing with multiple factors here, or different. I'm trying to think of a good word for it. We definitely have different groups, if you will, or entities that we're
I
dealing
was
with. We
gonna say it
obviously have,
doesn't seem like it's just one particular
no,
thing. It seems like a kind of stirred mixing pot of
yeah, so,
everything.
and that's where there's a lot there, and we have a lot of different theories, and that's where we don't want to come out like I'm not going to come out and say, oh, it was aliens or it was this or this.
Right.
Have that definite proof, but we definitely have some really good evidence, that we're dealing with something that's not human. It's not human made. There is something going on here, and that's I feel like we have a lot of evidence for that, and that's what's cool and exciting, and then our personal experiences. We talk about stuff all the time, and we have a lot of theories, and
Right.
we're we're going to be as open as possible about what we can talk about, but
Like you
there's
said, there's a layering and a timing for everything.
and
I know
so
one of
like,
the.
oh,
Oops,
go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead. No, no, go ahead.
Oh, so like for instance, like we have to sit on some of this stuff for a year until a new season comes out, right? So
Hmm.
um and that's hard. It sucks, and sometimes we've had so much happen that sometimes we forget some stuff happened until we start talking with each other. and,
Oh,
and we remind each other, oh, do you remember when that happened? And then, like some of it doesn't make the show, so we're like, okay, and so
right. It's kind of like,
there's
well,
a
I
lot.
wish I'd have been able to share that one.
Yeah, so and so we just have to wait until,
The
and
follow
then that's again why we wanted to do the website, because you guys really are seeing 3 to 4 months,
before
and we
everybody
have all
else
this
really.
other stuff happen, and there's a lot of information, and people are curious. Does the phenomenon just stop, or does it continue? And we have stuff happen throughout the year. So
I was gonna say, from what I've been seeing during the live feeds, it seems to be in spurts.
yep.
It'll be really active 2, 3, 4 nights in a row, and then you get like 3 or 4 days. There's really not much,
Hmm.
and then a couple weeks later you'll get another spike of a week or two that seems to be
Yeah.
fairly active.
And then some of it's just so subtle that you don't even think about it, and that's what's the hard part. Like my sunglasses, um, I can tell you little weird things like that happen all the time, but we just shrug it off as like, oh, I put my pen in a different place, and it's not there. It's
Right.
just things like that.
The only thing that we don't get to experience as insiders is the feel of the atmosphere there. We
Yeah.
don't get the personal, does it feel heavy at times? Does it
Mm.
feel like you can't breathe at times? I know that Dr. Travis had the incident in his trailer when you guys were getting that 1.6 spike
Yep.
going, and he seemed to have lost all thought, all comprehension of what he was doing, and was actually short of breath at one point.
Yeah.
Those are things that we can't experience because,
Yeah.
well, obviously it's kind of hard to do that through a computer or.
Yeah.
But we can try and read the body language from you guys to try and, as best we can, experience it.
Yeah, and that's the thing is the ranch. It's just like any other ranch. A lot of the times where you walk out there and it's just like any other place. And then we have things happen. And then there's definitely the times where it feels like something's off, and dark or something. So yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. There was one last, and then I'm gonna let you go because I know you got your family in.
Yeah.
Um, there's
Thank you.
a lot that go around the livestock on the farm, between the cow that was sick most recent, the
Yep.
cow that died, and the 2 alpacas that were attacked by whatever animal that was never really able to be explained. All
So
you could see was what looks like to me cougars, in my opinion, but I could be wrong.
I can tell you. So I don't like how they tried to portray that. It was a pack of dogs. We call them res dogs out here. We have reservation out here, and you have wild dogs. That's what attacked the alpaca. We knew what it was. I've shot some. There's
Okay, so there is an
was
explanation for.
there was an next one. There were weird. It was a strange situation because we literally brought those alpaca out, and 12 hours later they were attacked.
Right.
So there's things going like, why? Because we had cows, we have other animals. There's other animals out there. So why then? Why did they get attacked? We don't know. That was the question. But we've removed those animals off. The cow that died was never touched by bugs or anything like that. That was the strange thing is, and we actually had another individual come out, and I think Eric was working with him, but that individual was an expert with decomposition because we actually found another animal on the ranch, a wild animal, and this individual was able to go through and talk about that. And I don't want to go too much into that because Eric and that individual are going to be coming out with a really
Their
cool
own
video
details of the
explanation
situation.
about that. Yeah, so I want to let them talk about that. That's and it's some cool stuff, and it really showed that the validation with the cow though was it did die mysteriously. We had the necropsy and everything came back like normal. Talking with the vet, if you look at cows when they stand up, they always stand up from the back first.
Yes. Mhm.
And then they get up on their front legs. When you watch the video, that cow is trying
Popped
to
up
get up.
on its front legs.
Yep. So there's something going on with the back end, and he said that's either The only time you see that is if if the cow's pregnant or had a hard birthing process, which that was a yearling. It never had a baby, so that's out. Or something's messing with the electronics or with its oh gosh,
Motor function skills and
yeah, its nervous system and all that. So there was something going on with its hind legs there, and with all the other stuff, yeah. And then there, I can tell you that other animals have passed away on the ranch, like wild animals and things like that we found, and we find those carcasses and stuff, and they're picked clean. It's like normal. We have scavengers out here, so there's like a normal process. But the cow and some other animals have had like weird mummification, weird things going on with their decomposition process that is very interesting. So,
oh wow.
And then the other cow, we were able to get it off the property, and it's fine. So.
Okay, so its behaviors and what have you, because it was becoming aggressive, couldn't really stand up very well. It wanted to lay down a lot. It seemed very lethargic.
Yeah, it definitely had some stuff going on, and the rancher, when he came out, said that it was abnormal for that cow and for what was going on and stuff. So there was some abnormal things going on with it, but
the cow was able to be rescued from the ranch, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure that farmer is probably not too happy about his poor cow.
Oh, it's one of those things. Ranchers, they do lose cattle, and so he was intrigued a little bit. But yeah.
Well, I have to say that I am excited for next season. Yeah. We are literally following it as, like you said, the way you guys are seeing it is how we're seeing it. Yeah. So we're enjoying the experience of the adventure with you guys.
Yeah, and it sounds like you guys are insiders as well. So, and I know you guys see us on there, and we try to get on there and interact with everybody through the live feed, and we're doing our. We try to do an event now every week with everybody. So we're hoping to.
I think maybe you can redirect it. Maybe you can redirect this to Eric. What is with the tinkering with the cameras at night? I've noticed that they've changed them to red and green and blue and all these other really cool colors, but really no idea what the reasoning behind that is.
So what Eric's doing is he's taking a still photograph of the area, and he's putting it through a filter, so at night you can have a reference, because some of those cameras you can't see the topography and things like that. So what he's doing is he's giving an overlay of what's there. So he did a really cool one with Homestead 2, where you could see the outlines.
You can see the windows and the floor. Yeah. Well, I think that might be a good idea to do for the Mesa, because I don't know if you've ever noticed, but it kind of pixelates really badly, because it's hard to distinguish the darkness of the Mesa from the darkness of the sky.
And that's why he's
cloud coverage.
Yeah, that's why he's doing that. He's giving you a good overlay to have a good reference point of where the mesa's at and trees and things like that. So if you see a blinking or flashing light, you can make sense of it.
Right. See, that's awesome. Anyway, it was really, really awesome to talk to you. I'm really hoping to be able to get a hold of one of the other guys. Maybe you can help me out there.
We'll pass it on.
Kind of be like, hey, you've got someone that's been trying to talk to you.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was a pleasure talking to you and getting to know some of your experiences. And we enjoy the show, and we are excited for next year.
Great. Thank you for watching, and thanks for having me on.
Oh, thank you for being on.
Thanks.
Yep. You guys have a good day.
You have a wonderful day.
Yep.
Why is this not